Well, on Monday, the New York State Chamber passed the New York State DREAM Act, easing the cost of higher education for children of immigrants in New York by eliminating potential financial obstacles to obtaining state financial aid for undocumented students seeking to attend the institution of higher education. And joining us now to tell us more about this is Assemblymember Carmen de la Rosa, and we thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
My pleasure.
Congratulations. I think
Thank
you've been wanting to do this right, and we did it again for the 8th time. Talk to us about the 8th time.
Yeah, so this is actually my second session in Albany. I was elected in 2016, but the reality is that the New York State Assembly majority has been doing the right thing for these undocumented students since 2012. 8 times we've passed this bill. And the reason that we are excited about what happened this year is because we know that with the pressure coming down from Washington in immigrant communities, this is the perfect time for New York State to step up, to do what's in our mandate, and to protect these undocumented students.
So for people who don't know about undocumented students and this particular act, let's walk through that and explain to them what actually this act calls for.
Sure. So in New York State, in K through 12 education, we provide public school education funded in New York State for all children, regardless of their immigrant backgrounds. But what happens is that when these children reach the 12th grade and they're now going to college, they don't have access to state financial aid, which in New York State, with the cost of living and the cost of student education, is integral in order for them to be able to afford college. So what this bill does is that it opens up TAP for these undocumented students to access TAP. It also creates a Dream Fund Commission, so those students that don't qualify for TAP because of income eligibility, they would be able to access scholarships. And it also allows for them to open up a 529 savings account for them to save for college as they're going through their academic careers.
So somebody was saying, okay, I heard it say that it got passed 8 times. Why does it take 8 times?
So the reason is because in New York State, in order for a bill to become a law, we pass it, now the Senate has to pass it. And after the Senate passes it, the governor must sign it into law. What has happened in the last few years with the Republicans having a hold of the Senate, we have not been able to get this vote to a successful vote on the Senate floor.
So let's talk about that in the lobbying that's going on right there. Republicans still hold control of the Senate. Are you optimistic that something can go different this time around, especially given the heightened climate that we have politically?
Absolutely. Well, one of the good things is that this year the governor has included the DREAM Act in his budget proposal. So as we negotiate the budget, what we're hoping is that the DREAM Act stays in that budget proposal and that the Republicans in the Senate will not take it out. When we vote for a budget, we vote for everything in it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is the good. And we're hoping that this stays in the budget and that as we negotiate through this, they realize that what we're saying here, we're not saying we're giving anyone a pathway to citizenship. What we're saying is they deserve and they have the right to an education. An educated workforce in New York State means that our communities will be better off. The economy will be better off. It's an overall investment into our communities.
So walk us through the timeline. How long before we find out what the Republicans will actually do?
Well, the state budget is set to pass April 1st. So we have from here all the way until April 1st to negotiate the terms, to negotiate the bill, and to hopefully see this through fruition.
What have you been hearing so far?
So far, you know, the Democrats in that chamber are with us. We're having conversations. We've had conversations with the governor. The governor says he wants to do it this year. He recognizes the importance of having his leadership at the table. And so we're confident. I'm going to be an optimist. And I'm going to say New York State is going to do the right thing. Because New York State is a leader. And we already have 6 states who have a DREAM Act. So we need New York to step up and be the progressive leader that we are in this nation.
And so as far as public support, talk about the public and what the public has done in terms of putting this forward in terms of support.
Yeah, so we have a huge advocate coalitions that are in favor of this bill. And when you look at immigrant advocates in our state, you have Latinos, you have Caribbeans, you have Africans, you have people that are coming from Europe. Immigrants, we are all shapes and sizes and all shades and colors. And so we have a strong immigrant coalition, Asians, you know, everyone is on board with the DREAM Act. Right now, we're working with the New York Immigration Coalition. We're working with Make the Road New York and all the advocates to put the pressure on the Senate and to put the pressure on the governor so that we can have this bill passed.
And so, as we said, it goes before, hopefully the budget is in April, and hopefully the budget will be passed. And as far as the governor is concerned, he's been fully in support of this. He's included this into his budget. How much does that help?
Well, it helps because that's the starting point of the conversation. What we're seeing in New York State is that this year is going to be a financially difficult year for New York State. We have a $4.4 billion deficit. The DREAM Act, though, is only $27 million. And so in order to get this done, it's 1% of the budget. So it's really about priorities. And what we're saying is that the students in New York State should be our priorities. If we're going to cut corners, we can't cut corners when it comes to education.
And so we do know that the legislation would also help immigrant families prepare for costs of higher education, allowing them a tax identification number and a 529 tuition account.
Yes, that's correct. So one of the obstacles is that they're not even able to save right now for college. As most New Yorkers, they're working to make ends meet every single day. And so if they're able to even save to go to college, then it will make that process so much easier. I've had dreamers who have been my interns. And these dreamers, they work between classes, they work the overnight shift, they do everything in their power in order to graduate from college now. If we've invested in them in their early education, what does it say about New York if we're turning our backs on them when they reach that pivotal point in their academic careers?
So as this gets ready to go to the Senate, what can the public do in terms of having a voice?
Call your senators, call the governor's office. Let them know that you stand with the New York State Assembly majority and that you support the DREAM Act, because we in New York believe that everyone should have access to education.
All right, Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa, we thank you so much for coming and
Thank
sharing
you.
with us and the great work that's going on in there. Anything happening in your district, Rosa?
We're having a lot going on in our district right now. We're in the middle of celebrating African American History Month, Dominican Heritage Month, and we're also kicking off a few town halls that are going to be happening in the district. So stay tuned.
All righty, thanks so much for coming to share
Thank
with
you.
us, Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa. Listen, we are taking a quick break. We're going to come back, talk more on Open. We'll take it down to Washington, D.C. with our political analyst who will break down the latest on DACA, the president, and whether or not he'll actually meet with Robert Mueller.